Social media, known as one of the greatest inventions ever. It's a whole system of platforms where people can share their experiences and directly interact with one another instantly. It's not just a singular app, it's more of a subgenre of the internet. It's in most people's everyday life, and the site you're watching this video on right now, which is YouTube, is actually a form of social media. Now that we know what it is, when was it first invented? Well, Wonderopolis wrote an entire article exploring and explaining who was the original inventor of the first official social media platform. Well, they discovered that Andrew Weinrich founded it in 1997 with his platform 6 Degrees. 6 Degrees was pretty standard. It allowed users to list friends, family members and acquaintances, send messages and post bulletin board items. This site was the beginning of an era which is still continuing today. Starting in the era of the 1980s and still continuing on today, the digital revolution as defined by Anthony Elliott and Ross Boyd is one of the defining features of the 21st century. The digital revolution from AI, advanced robotics, Industry 4.0 and the Internet of Things to self-driving cars, chatbots and drones. It may look and sound a little confusing, but in bare bones terms, the digital revolution is the transition from mechanical and analog technologies to digital technologies. In reference to social media, this transition occurred with 6 Degrees in 1997. Prior to that, social media didn't exist, so how did people communicate? Well, phones were still a thing, telegraphs were still a thing, they just were less prominent. It was a lot less common to simply make friends in different countries as it was a lot more difficult. People had a higher value placed on local networking, not over a screen but in real life, in meetings, at parties. People had a higher value placed on the time with their friends. This is due to the fact that they could not just go home and message their friends again. The time that they spent with their friends throughout the day was the only time they would have. Everyone used to connect with their real thoughts, real identities, and their real selves. Well, yes, this still does happen today. It's just simply different. Social media opened up the gateway to communication across the world in an instant from your home. People now communicate constantly. They message friends, like posts, comment, review, watch videos, make videos. A lot of the connection between people now is just virtual. The outstanding difference with how it was prior to now is while they can still connect in real life, it's more difficult to form these proper connections than it was prior to transition. This relates to a concept that I personally call fake identity. A lot of people conform to trends they see online and try to make it their personality so people perceive them as perfect, when in reality they may be an absolute disaster. It's so easy to lie through a screen. I think Julia Collar said it best. She stated, "Information is only as reliable as the people receiving it." To put this in perspective, a lot of models use social media as influencer platforms to increase their overall popularity. So when we see a photo of a buff man with rock hard abs or something, that's what we take it in as. We take it as face value, when in reality it could be photoshopped, he could be sucking his stomach in, or it could be the lighting, the list goes on. People aren't their true self online, but prior to the digital revolution, everything was real. While it got quite philosophical there, the overarching difference between connecting socially before and after the digital revolution is that before it, people spent more time in real life together experiencing real things. Whereas now, people spend more time online developing virtual relationships instead of real ones. Prior to social media, media institutions would commonly use geographical location as the main way to control what people see. This is in reference to how movies used to be only available in their corresponding countries where they were produced. But mostly, other than that, people decided for themselves what they wanted to look at. Some read the newspaper, some didn't, and that wasn't because the media somehow convinced them to not read it, it's just because people maybe didn't want to. But following the transition to digital, big names like Facebook, Instagram and Twitter all give the illusion that people have control over what they see. In an article written by the reality check team at BBC News, they state, referencing YouTube, the video sharing site owned by Google said that 8.8 million videos were taken down between July and September 2019, with 93% of them automatically removed by machines. That just displays a small glimpse into how these companies control it. But this isn't necessarily bad, because a lot of these videos removed were probably horrific. They must have violated the terms and conditions on the platform, resulting in their removal. That isn't bad, but it still shows that these companies do control what is put up and what is not. It can get quite cynical when talking about social media regulation. An author by the name of Dipayan Ghosh, I may have butchered that name, actually wrote in an article on this talking about the US Capitol raids earlier this year and how Donald Trump was banned. For many, Facebook and Twitter's bans were long awaited, but it's not so cut and dry, as many others have decried these decisions as infringements on free speech. He discusses how many people think it isn't morally correct that these companies can de-platform people while sharing content that they want to. Social media platforms' broader tendency to promote and amplify conspiracy theories, fringe groups, and other problematic content must be addressed. Even with all the recommendations and the decisions that media makes for us, we still have the ability to choose whether or not to actually view the content. Prior to the digital revolution, people had all the choice themselves. There was no bots controlling posters for movies they saw. Instead, they made the choice to go see something. Yes, companies may have heavily recommended different things, but they had a choice to act on the recommendations. And to be blunt, it's the same nowadays. People can write about how social media brainwashes people and all that good stuff, but we, as the audience, have the power to choose whether we want to see it or not. It's the same concept. Now, you can just delete the app and not see any content from it if you want. The ability to act and choose has never changed, it's just that people are addicted to what they see. This addiction is what these media companies capitalize off. MvOrganizing said the primary way social media companies like Facebook and Twitter make money is through selling advertising. Ever wonder why you'll look something up and then all of a sudden you're seeing ads of what you searched? It's because that's a part of your data which is sold. That isn't the only way they make money though. Some platforms offer paid subscription services for more exclusivity. An example of this would be LinkedIn. While it's possible to sign up for free, if the user pays a small fund monthly, they will have more access to different functions and communication options. Before the digital revolution, it was still actually quite a similar concept. Media companies who would produce content on televisions or cinema screens would sell 30 seconds to about a minute slots of time for a single advertisement. This didn't involve any personalized advertising or any personal data being used. It was just a way to advertise products to a large audience. This was a large, if not the largest part of how money was made by media companies back then, and it still hasn't relatively changed. Now that we've discussed all aspects of social media and how it has changed the world with the digital revolution, what are the benefits of social media? Well, we all see this first one coming, as it's already been stated, communication. With the invention of social media, it became so much easier and more possible for widespread communication from one continent to another in an instant. It completely changed how people socialize and how people develop their relationships, but everyone knows that this is a benefit. After all, it is called social media. Secondly, social media has opened up so many different job opportunities and has allowed people with unique talents to excel, whereas previously they would go unnoticed. A common job that is frequently frowned upon is being an influencer. While people argue that anyone can become an influencer just because they're good looking, it doesn't take from the fact that these people are being paid for what they put online, which is technically a job. Moreover, it has overall furthered the economy. Businesses now have the ability to expand immensely with unconventional products solely because of social media. In an article written by Justin Lin, he states, "Social media has helped many businesses grow and promote itself," which couldn't be more true. He explores how, if relationships are built between consumers and company workers, they'll want to buy the product of the company. Social media has created a gateway for many businesses to succeed that otherwise wouldn't. For example, a blanket that is in the shape and has the look of a burrito has blown up in popularity within the last few years because of social media. According to Yahoo News, in 2020, the Kosofu burrito blanket gained in only 24 hours a 4.8 out of 5 star rating from over 18,500 customers on Amazon alone. In fact, the blanket became so popular that articles were being written about it by publishers such as Women's Health Magazine, People.com, and obviously where I got statistics from, Yahoo News. But this is just to name a few. The career pathways have exploded with choice, and people have hundreds of different jobs which they can do, although it isn't all sunshine and rainbows. With the increase in social media popularity, sadly, suicide rates have followed along. Jamie Zelazny, an assistant professor at the University of Pittsburgh, noted that suicide rates have tripled among youth aged 10 to 14 and is the second leading cause of death for individuals aged 10 to 24. She also noticed that suicide rates coincide with the rising rates of social media use. This could probably be attributed to the fact that social media has been linked with low self-esteem, poor body image, and risk-taking behaviours. Studies have also found that cyberbullying is linked with anxiety and depression. People tend to feel pressured to post content which makes them look good for others. Many change themselves completely, solely so people online will accept them. It is more common than not to have a fear of being judged and attempting to be what others want us to be. Additionally, social media is a dangerous tool, which when used right can ruin someone's livelihood. There is simply too much information about people online, as people have a false trust that nothing can happen. Just recently, in September 2021, Australian police have been given data corruption, surveillance, account takeover, and network activity powers. This means that the police can legally hijack someone's personal account, look through all their information, and even post on said account. As Glyn Moody wrote, one obvious problem is that the new law allows the police to change data on a person's system, potentially allowing the authorities to plant false evidence. The police have the ability to sway any case in their personal favour, and that is unjust, unfair, and unethical. Ultimately, social media has benefits and disadvantages like everything in the world, but it's important to weigh out the pros and cons and decide, is social media bringing the world together or tearing it apart?